Today's lesson is Chapter 20, Section 4, the Columbian Exchange. Now, objectives students will describe the Columbian Exchange, global trade, and mercantilism. Now, the colonization of the Americas introduced new items into Eastern and Western hemispheres. Now, why does this matter now? This global exchange of goods permanently changed Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Some terms and names we'll go over. The Columbian Exchange, capitalism, joint stock company, mercantilism, and favorable balance of trade. All right, the Columbian Exchange, the colonization of Americas dramatically changed the world. It prompted both voluntarily and forced migration of millions of people. It led to the establishment of new and powerful societies. Other effects of European settlement of the Americas were less noticeable but equally important. Colonization resulted in the exchange of new items that greatly influenced the lives of people throughout the world. The new wealth from the Americas resulted in new business and trade practices in Europe. Now, the global transfer of food, plants, and animals during the colonization of the Americas was known as the Columbian Exchange. Ships from the Americas brought back a wide array of items that Europeans, Asians, and Africans have never seen before. They included such plants as tomato, squash, pineapples, tobacco, coca beans for chocolate. They also included animals such as turkey, which became a source of food in the Eastern Hemisphere. Perhaps the most important item to travel from the Americas to the rest of the world were corn and potatoes. Both were inexpensive to grow and nutritious. Potatoes especially supplied many essential vitamins and minerals, and over time both crops became important and a steady part of diets throughout the world, and these foods helped people live longer. They played a significant role of boosting the world's population. White potatoes were planted in Ireland and sweet potatoes in China. Now, if you look at this map, you can see all the foods that were in North America that were never in the rest of the part of the world. You have tobacco, sweet potato, avocados, potatoes, beans, vanilla, pumpkins, turkey. That's delicious. But the Europeans brought over some coffee beans, peaches, citrus fruits, cows, livestock, sheep, pigs. Those things were never indigenous to North America. I didn't know that they brought the honeybee over. That's kind of interesting. But they also brought disease, malaria, diphtheria, whooping cough, typhus, and measles. So they brought all their diseases with them too. And here's another map. You can see what's coming from North America and going into Europe and Africa, and what's coming from Africa into North America and South America. And this is the Columbian Exchange. All right, traffic across the Atlantic did not flow in just one direction. Europeans introduced various livestock animals to the Americas. These included horses, cattle, sheep, and pigs. And food from Africa included some that originated in Asia and migrated west to European ships. Okay, so maybe that's where the bees come from. I have no idea. They included bananas, black-eyed peas, and yams. What the heck is a yam? Grains introduced to the Americas included wheat, rice, barley, and oats. Some aspects of the Columbian Exchange had a tragic impact on many Native Americans. Disease was just as much part of the Columbian Exchange as other goods and food. The diseases the Europeans brought with them, which included smallpox, measles, led to the death of millions of Native Americans because they did not have a natural immunity to these diseases, such as the Europeans, because they've been exposed to these diseases for many centuries. Other diseases Europeans brought with them included influenza, typhus, malaria, and diphtheria. The global trade, the establishment of the colonial empires in the Americas influenced nations of Europe in other ways. New wealth from the Americas was coupled with a dramatic growth in overseas trade. The two factors together prompted a wave of new business and trade practices in Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. These practices, many of which served as the root of today's financial dealings, dramatically changed the economic atmosphere of Europe. All right, the rise of capitalism. We are a capitalist society. Sorry, we are a capitalist society. America is a capitalist society. And what is capitalism? We will get into what capitalism is. One aspect of the European economic revolution was the growth of capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership and investment of resources such as money for profit. No longer were governments the sole owners of great wealth. So, due to the overseas colonization and trade, numerous merchants obtained great wealth. So, instead of just government officials and royalty, such as kings and queen, now people could get rich. These merchants continued to invest their money in trade and overseas exploration, and these investments enable merchants and traders to reinvest even more money into their enterprises. And as a result, businesses across Europe grew and flourished. Inflation, an important economic concept to know. The increase in economic activity in Europe led to an overall increase in many nations' money supply. This also brought in inflation, or a steady rise of the price of goods. Inflation occurs when people have more money to spend and less demand for more goods and services. Because the supply of goods is less than the demand for them, the goods become both scarce and more valuable. Then prices rise. This is what inflation is. At this time in Europe, the costs of many goods rose. Spain, for example, endured a crushing bout of inflation during the 1600s, as boatloads of gold and silver from the Americas greatly increased the nation's money supply. Another business venture that developed during this period was known as the joint stock company. And the joint stock company worked much like the modern day corporation. The investors buying shares of stock in a company. It involved a number of people combining their wealth for a common purpose. So if you ever hear of a company going public, this is what it's talking about. In Europe during the 1500s and 1600s, that common purpose was American colonization. It took a large amount of money to establish overseas colonies. Moreover, while profits may have been great, so were the risks. Many ships, for instance, never completed the long, dangerous ocean voyage. And because joint stock companies involved numerous investors, the individual members paid only a fraction of the total colonization costs. If the colony failed, investors lost their small share. And if the colony thrived, the investors shared in the profits. It was a joint stock company that was responsible for the establishment of Jamestown, the first successful European colony. England's first North American colony, but it was also Europe's, I guess you could say, England's first successful colony. That's why we remember it. It's not the first, but it was the first successful one. I really wouldn't call it much of a success. Most of those people died. All right, the growth of mercantilism, stemming from the word merchant. During this time, the nations of Europe adopted a new economic policy known as mercantilism. The theory mercantilism held that countries' power depended mainly on its wealth. Wealth for all allowed nations to build strong navies and purchase vital goods. And as a result, the goal of every nation became to attain as much wealth as possible. See who can be the richest nation. That could be a problem. So now, according to this theory, a nation could increase its wealth and power in two ways. First, it could obtain as much gold and silver as possible. Greedy. Second, it could establish a favorable balance of trade in which it sold more goods than it bought. That's an important concept if you ever decide to go into the business world. The favorable balance of trade. You want to sell more goods. You want to sell more product than buying more product. If you're selling more product, you're making more money. A nation's ultimate goal under this theory was to become self-sufficient, not dependent on other countries. So self-sufficient, they want to make and sell everything and not have to rely on any other countries. Mercantilism went hand in hand with colonization because colonies played a vital role in this new economic practice. Aside from providing silver and gold, colonies provided raw materials that could not be found in the home country, such as wood or furs. In addition to playing the role of supplier, the colonies also provided a market. The home country could sell its goods and its colonies. All right, economic revolution changes European society. The economic changes that swept through much of Europe during the age of American colonization also led to changes in European society. The economic revolution spurred the growth of towns and the rise of a class of merchants who controlled great wealth. The changes in Europe's society, however, only went so far. While towns and cities grew in size, much of Europe's population continued to live in rural areas. And although merchants and traders enjoyed social mobility, the majority of Europeans remained poor. More than anything else, the economic revolution increased the wealth of European nations. In addition, mercantilism contributed to the creation of a national identity. The new economic practices helped expand the power of European monarchs, kings and queens, who became powerful rulers. All right, so think about your favorite food. The chances are at least one of these originated in a distant land. You see a picture of an avocado because an avocado is my favorite food. And that's your lesson for today. Thanks for listening. Peace out.